All right, what is going on, guys? This is the Xbox 2 podcast live on a Friday, day after Thanksgiving. Hopefully, everybody listening who celebrates Thanksgiving had an incredible holiday and are enjoying those leftovers because I know I will be later. And yeah, well, what's going on, guys? I'm Randall Thor 19, and with me, as always, we have Jez Corden from Windows Central. How was your Thanksgiving, Jez? Oh, wait, you don't celebrate it.
No, I don't, because I am British. What is Thanksgiving? I don't even get what it is. You give
Like,
thanks
you
and
give
have turkey.
I remember being in school and seeing like artistic renditions of like the pilgrims having feasts with the Native Americans. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Which, considering what we ended up doing to the Native Americans, kind of makes it weird. But I mean, actually,
Yeah,
I don't.
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. I don't get it.
I mean, okay. So basically, it says I just wikied it because I wasn't really sure. It says it begins as a day of giving thanks for the blessing of the harvest and of the preceding year. So I guess that's what it is, you know. Um, Mostly it's about eating tons of food with family and then shopping right afterwards to get the best deals in electronics.
That's so American.
That is, it is.
Eating loads of food and then shopping.
Hmm.
But
I mean, that's basically what it comes down to, right?
I mean, it's not a bad thing. I like food and I like shopping. You buy
I
anything in
mean,
the Black Friday stuff before we get into it?
what about the Black Friday stuff?
Did you buy anything? Any
I
cool
bought
deal?
one thing. So here's the thing: I don't necessarily partake in Black Friday because I don't want to go out in the cold here in Chicago. It's quite cold, and I don't want to go out at midnight. And there really hasn't been anything where it's like I need this and it's $400 off. So let me brave the cold and the crowd to get it right. So no, most of the time I've never gone out for Black Friday because I just don't want to do that. But I did buy something. I bought Astrobot for the PSVR. Amazon had a
Oh,
digital code on sale for 19.99, and it's a game I've wanted to play for some time. So I bought that. And I guess you could say part of the Black Friday deal on Xbox, since they have that sale going on as well, I bought Mortal Kombat XL for $5. Even though I played the crap out of Mortal Kombat, I have 1,000 gamer score in it. And originally, when it came out, I didn't do any of the DLC characters. I was like, you know what? For $5, I can add it to my collection. Maybe I'll play it one day. You know what I mean?
what does XL give you?
XL gives you the entire game and everything they release for it. So all the DLC characters, all the, like the
So it's like a Game
costumes.
of the Year edition or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much. But it was $5. So it was like it's a no brainer. It was like, I'll play this at some point in time, but I like having it. But yeah, so that was my Black Friday. I mean, I basically slept while other people were out shopping. I mean, this is the thing. I don't really need any games. I have all of them. The ones I want on PlayStation, the ones I want on Xbox. So I wasn't looking for any gaming deals. I own all three systems, so I wasn't looking to get like a 199 PlayStation or anything like that, like that Spider-Man deal. I have a brand new PC which I just bought last year. The only thing I'm kind of considering is a newer television. Because I have a 4K television I bought in 2016. It doesn't do like real HDR, so I kind of want to upgrade that, but I don't have the space right now because I have a 42-inch 4K TV. I want to go up to 50 or 60-inch, but I just don't have like the entertainment center set up for it.
Yeah.
So I kind of got to wait on that.
First world problems, mate.
I know, right? So what did you get? What did you know what? I know what you got because you caused quite a stir on social media when you posted a picture of your Black Friday pickup.
I did. I bought a PlayStation
You bought a
Pro.
PlayStation
Full
after
Pro.
all the talk about how you would never get a PlayStation. Jez
I never
Corden
said
went out.
that.
Well, okay, sure, but all the talk of how you don't have any space.
You know what I've sacrificed to get the PlayStation?
What'd you sacrifice?
My second monitor.
Oh no, not the second monitor.
I'm gonna sacrifice my second monitor and put the PlayStation where my second monitor is right now. That's how I've made space for it. But I saw a good deal. There was like, I don't know, I got about €100 off or something, which is a pretty good deal. And I also forgot that I had an unused Amazon voucher, and I felt like that was divine providence or something. I just thought, screw it, man. God of War, Last of Us, here I come, and all the rest of it. Persona, oh yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have like if you're like me and you haven't really played a PlayStation game this gen or last gen, you got some bangers to play. I know people out there hate that term bangers. That's why I'm saying it. Bangers. That one's for you, native. Um, dude, I know Uncharted 1 doesn't hold up very well, but if you want to experience like the whole story, obviously you got to play it. But Uncharted 2,
I played Uncharted 1,
oh,
and
okay.
I know full well it doesn't hold
Yeah.
up.
So
But,
Uncharted 4 is pretty good. Last of Us is incredible. God of War is incredible. Spider-Man is really, really good. I really
yeah,
like
it came
Detroit.
with the bundle came with Spider-Man, but I think I
Yeah.
might sell that because
Mm,
physical discs in 2018. Yeah.
physical discs. Yeah. I think Spider-Man's worth playing. But yeah, there's a ton. What about VR? Are you gonna get PSVR? Check some of
No,
that stuff out? Nah,
no.
not interested.
I've got a VR, a PC VR headset. I don't like VR. I think it's years away from being convenient. My VR headset just sits in a drawer gathering dust. You know, I got all the Steam VR games, a lot of the good ones. It was fun, but it's just so uncomfortable, so inconvenient. All the cables, and again, whole space issue, man.
That is true. I do wish the PSVR had less of clutter, right? The breaker box, all the cables running to and from it,
Yeah, I
how
mean,
heavy it kind of does feel, at least on my head. Like I really want it to be wireless.
yeah,
Like I think that experience can be made a lot better in the future.
yeah. I was I mean, just as an example, Arizona Sunshine. I don't know if that's on PSVR, but Arizona Sunshine is like widely regarded as one of the better VR games. In you move around with using the joystick, and you can sort of teleport around. So like, and it's when you play it like that, it kind of plays like an on-rail shooter almost, but you can move around obviously because of the teleporting. But and that's fine because you don't have to physically turn around because you can spin your character around with the joystick. But like in Doom VR, where you have to actually physically move around in order to aim, it's a nightmare because you just get tangled up in the cables. You know, the
Yeah.
cables end up getting wrapped around your legs. It's like, who thought this was a good idea? It's just not good, man. It's just a terrible experience. So
What I've come to know about VR is that people don't like hearing about it, which is why we're going to move away from this subject. Anytime VR is brought up in any sort of podcast or video, nobody cares, right? Because it's something you got to experience for yourself. So I do have to ask though, you got a PS4 Pro,
yeah,
and you got Spider-Man.
yeah.
What is the first PlayStation game you're going to check out? Do you have anyone in mind? God of War,
God of War.
Last of Us?
God of War. I don't know actually. I'm torn between God of War and Last of Us. I'll probably do a coin toss.
You should make a poll on Twitter. Put a poll on
Yeah,
Twitter
I'll do a poll. Yeah, I'll do a poll.
and be like God of War or Last of Us because they're both incredible games. So and there's God of War obviously has a lot of takes a lot of influence from Last of Us. Clearly, I mean you'll see it when you play both. You'll be like, huh, I can
Maybe
definitely
I'll
see
play
where.
Last of Us first then in that case.
Yeah. Plus, Last of Us. I mean, it's a game from 2013. The sequel's coming. Maybe you play it right before the sequel. I don't know. That'd be better. But that's kind of talks out of the way. So I want to welcome everybody to the show. I see we have like 203 here already. Thank you for joining on a Friday episode. Hope everybody's Thanksgiving was well. If you could do me and Jez a favor, hit that like button as you're entering the podcast because it helps out. Because YouTube is very weird when it comes to sending out notifications for videos and podcasts. Sometimes they do when they feel like it, and sometimes they don't. But I've noticed that, more likes the video gets or dislikes, the better chance of the video reaching out on subscribers. So we'd appreciate if you do that. And we appreciate everybody listening on iTunes and Google Play. I think you fixed the issue that some people had last time, right? With it repeating twice for a podcast or whatever.
Oh yeah. We signed up with an ad provider, but the ad provider injected the podcast twice in addition to the ad, so I just removed the ad provider. Screw it.
Yeah, that's right. Screw it. Screw it.
YOLO.
So, what are we talking about on this episode? Well, we're going to talk about. Well, Jez is really, really looking forward to talking about Fallout 76 and the hate surrounding it. And if people are just dogpiling on the game because of they see everybody doing it because, as Jez said, he loves the game. Yeah, that's what he told me. He loves Fallout 76. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Probably in the what we've been playing section. Also, there's a Diskless Xbox One coming out pretty soon, supposedly next year. And
Supposedly is the key word.
Supposedly, rumor and speculation. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I think it's like a no-brainer, and it's really just about time. But we'll talk more about that. There's a rumor coming to us from Clobril on Reset Era about maybe Microsoft might be considering a new studio for acquisition. I don't know if you saw this one, Jez.
I didn't
make a video about it because not because I don't trust Clobril, because I absolutely do. I just didn't really want to make a video just based on consideration, because that could mean anything. I'm sure Microsoft is considering buying EA and Valve at one point. You know what I mean? Just because you're considering doing something doesn't mean you actually, walk the walk to actually do it. And then, of course, PlayStation skipping E3 2019, which shocked everybody. Me and Jez haven't talked about it yet. We'll talk everything surrounding that. And since this is an Xbox, well, this is a show whatever we want it to be. It's called Xbox 2 because that's what Stickfigure, kind of named it, and then we took it. So even though it's called the Xbox 2 and we primarily talk about Xbox on the show, we talk about whatever the hell we want on the show. But we're going to talk about the Sony thing, and we're going to kind of tie it into what Microsoft can do to make the best out of the situation or kind of capitalize on it all. So with that said, let's move on to games we played. And no World of Warcraft for you, Jez.
No World of Warcraft.
I can tell we're gonna talk about Fallout 76, so I'll let you go last. We're gonna talk about Battlefield 5 because me and you both played it. Right?
Sure.
Battlefield 5. How do you feel about it? I've played probably 15 hours of the multiplayer. I think the multiplayer is a ton of fun. I kind of like it better than Battlefield 1's, even though I'm not really a fan of the menus. They need to
always suck in
Battlefield. The menus are horrible. I don't know why they do that. The menus suck, right? I'm not a fan of the way the unlocks work in the game. There's not a lot of weapons to choose from. Some of the maps are really good, some of them aren't. And the single player is absolutely terrible, but it is fun. But I can't help but think that EA just didn't do this game any favors at all. From, the missing features to the whole backlash to when it launched and stuff. What do you think about Battlefield 5, Jez?
Yeah, I think Battlefield 5 is embattled. That's a good way of putting it. I'm like you, man. I played the campaign war stories. I hated it. I don't even know why they bother at this point. I thought the Norwegian campaign was the strongest one. Yep. I was like, it would have been better if they just fleshed that out into a real campaign and not just like a sort of almost like a vignette. I don't know what they were thinking, man, when they thought that would be a good idea to just have these tiny little stories.
The thing is, the prologue's so good, though, isn't it? That little 10-minute prologue with the voiceover and how you're like, you're driving a tank and you're flying an airplane, and it gives you these little snippets, and you're like, man, this is really going to be something. But then the game starts, and you don't drive a tank, you don't fly a plane, which is weird for a Battlefield game, wouldn't you agree, in the single player?
Well, this is the thing, you see. I think Their plan is to add more episodes for free as time goes by. So like maybe there will be a plane flying one, and this was all sort of like a hint at things to come. But the thing is, you don't want a hint at things to come when you're paying $60 up front. You know, it just ends up like this. EA hasn't really proven itself to be a good game as a service company, in my opinion. Um, like when you paid for I always buy Battlefield Premium before. They've done away with that now. There's no more Battlefield Premium. I always felt Battlefield Premium was one of the few season passes that actually delivered on its value. Now Battlefront 2 didn't have a season pass, and the post-launch content for Battlefront 2 has been pretty dire. Only just had General Grievous added after a year of waiting. And now they're adding Obi-Wan in December, I think, off the top of my head, and a new map finally. But it's taken a whole year to get there, you know. So like, I feel like they haven't really proven themselves to be a good service type company yet. Um, which is also like why I'm not optimistic that future war stories are going to be good, and I'm not optimistic that they're going to add as many maps as you get when you pay for Battlefield Premium. So at least the player base won't be split. But you know, it's just trade-offs. Um, but yeah, the multiplayer is great. Like I think, I mean, I'm kind of tired of that setting, the European World War setting. But the systems are great. The destruction is definitely ramped up from Battlefield One. Like you can destroy the huge buildings in Rotterdam and collapse the debris on people and kill them, which is always hilarious to
But
do.
it doesn't feel like any really step ups from Battlefield Bad Company that did it
Yeah, yeah,
back in
yeah.
last generation.
That's the thing. It's not like we haven't seen this before in Battlefield Bad Company and on other Battlefield games. I think Battlefield I think it was 3 or 4 had like pretty good environmental destruction when it came to like the bigger buildings. But um yeah, it just feels like it's like you said, I don't think they gave it the best chance it could have had. It feels like since Battlefront, EA's been sort of reeling and sort of not being, I don't know, firing on all cylinders almost. It's
Yeah.
not a bad game, but it's just like it's not exciting or whatever. I don't know.
Well,
It's just kind of like it's a good game,
I
but
mean,
it's
it
not.
also it's like missed opportunities. You have this super hot genre in battle royale, right? That clearly helped Call of Duty Blackout or Call of Duty Black Ops 4 rather.
Yeah.
You have Fortnite, biggest game in the world, PUBG, even though uh PUBG's taken a hit. I mean, you still look there. It's still like one of the most played games on Steam every single day. It's still highly up there in Twitch viewership, and they don't launch with it. They don't launch with that mode, and they're like, it's coming later. And I just kind of
Like
question
no one's
like,
gonna care.
right, like in March when it's supposed to come out, are people are gonna give a shit? And I just look at all the different scenarios surrounding that, and it just comes down to like, I don't know, poor management decisions. Like, because you do this campaign, and you have Black Ops 4 not doing one, and you have people like me and Jez saying like they shouldn't even have bothered doing a campaign. Like they should have just it should just be multiplayer only. It's like half a game. And it's like they didn't even bother to try. So like when I say in my review for, the campaign that hey, it would be better for Battlefield not to have a campaign than this campaign that's bad. Like that's horrible when you play something you're like, this would be best if it didn't exist. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I felt with the campaign. It just seems like every decision they made surrounding Battlefield 5 was a bad one, and which is a shame because the multiplayer is actually really fun to play.
Yeah. The time to
And
kill is so much better. I always felt like one of the weirder things about Battlefield, and I am a guy who prefers Battlefield to other multiplayer shooters. Battlefield's always been my go-to game since Bad Company 2. I think it was when I completely ditched Call of Duty and just focused on Battlefield. But like the time to kill like is so much better now. It feels a bit more like hardcore as standard almost. I always felt like players were a bit bullet spongy in Battlefield compared to COD. And I think they found a good compromise now. Where you still don't get evaporated like you do in COD, and you can still heal people and stuff, but it no longer feels like people are bullet sponges, which is I like
Yeah.
that.
No, I agree. I agree. And shout out to Lumi for the super chat. Thanks for the support, brother. Really appreciate it. So, anything more you want to talk about Battlefield 5? Um,
Nah, not really.
I do have like a side thing that kind of deals with Battlefield 5, and it'll get into Fallout 76, right? And it's something I've noticed, and it has to do with Microsoft's marketing partners. Do you know where I'm going to go with this, Jez?
All their games are controversial.
Not controversial. It's like all right, so Sony partnered up with Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which was clearly a good choice. I don't know if you saw the MPDs. It's like the eighth
Yeah.
best-selling, start for a game ever, and they're saying the removal of the campaign had no impact at all, right? So it's number one. They obviously partnered with Red Dead Redemption 2, the biggest game of the year, which left Microsoft with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which underperformed. Sony had Spider-Man, their own game, which clearly I wouldn't even say overperformed. It's like selling gangbusters. And then Microsoft had Battlefield 5 to counter Call of Duty, and was supposed to come out at the same time to have those kind of competing ads. And that game got delayed a month. And now Microsoft also has a deal with Fallout 76 at the same time as Battlefield 5. Both those games have these controversies, as Jez would say. Right?
Controversy.
So the partner with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, but nobody really cares. It kind of falls off a cliff after the first week. Nobody even talks about it anymore. Then you have Battlefield 5, which was embroiled in the social justice warrior stuff, and they had to delay the game. They're not doing Battle Royale. And then you have Fallout 76, and what's going on with that? With people hating the game. And I just can't help but feel it's like, are Microsoft making some wrong partnership choices when it comes to games that they're obviously shacking up with? I can't help but they're just like, maybe it's because Sony just like they got the pick of the litter, they're number one, but I don't know.
It's funny though, because like on paper you'd think like a multiplayer Fallout would be a surefire hit, right? On paper. But it's the problem with Fallout isn't the systems as much as it is that it's broken. As someone who, I'm playing it right now as we podcast, to be honest. And as someone, I've put like 30 hours into it so far, and I've been playing mostly solo and enjoying it. You can't like even the biggest Bethesda fanboy cannot defend this game for its quality. It is so broken. It is aggressively broken. It's impressively broken. I think Bethesda themselves put it best when they said in that sappy letter, apologetically, there will be spectacular bugs in the beta. Well, guess what? There are spectacular bugs in retail too, and it's it's shocking, man. I'm like every time I see a bug, I've been like taking a clip on Xbox Live because I'm probably gonna make like a video that collects them all. There are so many, man. I got so many. My cloud storage is almost full of bugs in this game, and it's because the engine just wasn't made for multiplayer, and they're rendering all this stuff in the cloud and stuff, and it's just not designed for that. Like you can see the physics breaking in real time when they're trying to download to your computer. And like when there's like it runs best when there's no other players around. And you're in a place where you're by yourself. There's no other players around to create lag or anything like that. Which ain't what you want in a multiplayer game, is it?
I mean, no, not at all. You definitely don't want that. But do you? I mean, is it? I would imagine. So the response to the whole marketing question is probably just coincidence, right? You want to partner with Battlefield because Battlefield's a huge franchise.
And Fallout 2, it's a
And
massive
Fallout, yeah.
franchise.
It's just that
It just feels like
crap
bad luck.
happens, right? Crap happens.
Yeah.
So I don't really think like because people are like, oh, Devil May Cry 5, right? Because that looks like it has a partnership with Xbox, but it has microtransactions like Metro. Is that going to? Because I see people questioning it now, like the games that Microsoft has deals with suddenly are like, oh man, well because their previous ones like this one's not going to be good, and I'm just like, I don't think that's the case. The partnership deals are more for like advertisements on
Yeah, I mean,
television
it's
and stuff like that.
completely unfair. I mean, Microsoft put a lot of effort into marketing Fallout 76. It's not like they. You can't just assume that a game's going to be broken when you set up these deals. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, Bethesda's notorious for its bugs, right, and quirks.
Yes, very.
Fallout 4 wasn't broken. It was just sort of like, yeah, these are the creation engine bugs from all the complexity that just exists in these sort of games where there's just literally thousands of dynamic objects. Things break, and now they've put all that into the internet, and now it's more broken than ever. And you know, Microsoft couldn't have known that would be a fail. I don't know. It's weird to assume. It's weird to think that Microsoft could have known how broken it was when they set up those marketing deals.
Yeah, I know. It's just
Here we are.
it it just kind of reminds me of last year when Microsoft had like the Xbox One X and wanted to market some of their games, but they couldn't because Sony wisely had some of those games.
Oh, you mean like Destiny?
Yeah, and like even like Red Dead this year, like oh man, how much Microsoft could have marketed
Yeah.
like that, but they couldn't. So
They
smart on
couldn't
Sony.
say they couldn't say that Red Dead was 4K on the X. So what they did was they had Eurogamer say it for them, which was smart.
True. Yeah. So let's transition to Fallout 76 itself. The hate that surrounds Fallout
Hey,
76 is something really, truly like
it's something.
special to behold, right? I haven't seen this much outrage and hate and despair from gamer. Maybe not despair is a good word, but people honestly
Despair is a
hate.
good word, I think.
They hate Fallout 76, Jez.
I
And I
saw
had
I saw a video from a prominent YouTuber that said that was literally despairing that he couldn't like even old Bethesda games anymore because he was so upset about this game.
right. I had a discussion last night with my buddy who is 70 hours into Fallout 76 and loves it. And he is just in utter defense mode anytime we talk about any of the issues about Fallout 76. Like he is ready to come to the defense over the game, and we're just like, stop it. Like we're happy you like the game. Like I'm happy you enjoy Fallout 76, like but like that shouldn't because he feels the whole thing is just orchestrated. It's orchestrated by the media and YouTubers
Conspiracy.
that are looking for clicks and everybody piles onto it with the hate and nobody really truly hates the game. It's just like Kotaku and YouTubers riding the train, which I will say negativity does get more play and more clicks for stuff on websites and especially here on YouTube. uh Positivity not so much, but I don't know. And I don't have an opinion on Fallout 76. I haven't played it. I don't want to play it. I'm not interested in it. I'm just looking at everything I see. I see Bethesda being heralded last year with their Save Player One campaign. You remember that, Jazz?
Yes, I do.
Save Player One. People were like, Bethesda's one of the few publishers willing to do single player without any microtransactions or any forced multiplayer, and people were loving them. They put out Wolfenstein 2, they put out Evil Within 2, they Dishonored 2, all these games. They were heralded by gamers, even though Fallout and Skyrim are buggy, people still love them, right?
Mm.
And then in a short period of time, 1 year later, they are almost as despised as EA.
This is definitely this year's Battlefront.
Definitely, for sure.
and for a completely different reason. It's it is weird, and I agree with your friend that there is an element of media bandwagoning here because I've seen like I've gone out and seen like reviews that criticized Fallout for things that they didn't criticize Conan Exiles for, that they didn't criticize No Man's Sky for, which are, similar online persistent world games. I think Fallout 76, even with the bugs, is better than those games. Um, there's more to do. There's more to explore. The world's better realized. There's tons of stuff to find. Environmental narrative like Prey, which I really like. You know, it's like any Fallout game where you're traveling through a settlement and you can find like all these sorts of little narrative nods all over the place and stuff like that. I like that. It's immersive when I play. The problems with Fallout is that it's broken. Like I said earlier, the engine just wasn't designed. Not only wasn't it was not designed for multiplayer, it was not designed to be played online. So like even though it still has all those objects and all those things to collect and all those things to find, it feels like, and I'm no server engineer, but it feels like it creates this sort of stacking lag that gets worse and worse and worse and worse the more people are in an area, that it just becomes unplayable. I was playing all last week on the Xbox One S, and I'm enjoying it a lot more now I'm on the X because it just, it looks better, the draw distance is better, level of detail is better, texture compression is better, all that sort of stuff is much better on the X. But it doesn't matter when a lot of it's bound to the server, and you still end up in these situations where everything just breaks, and you get like ghouls zipping across the screen, lagging out. You get like all there's weird graphical anomalies. Like I was literally, as we were podcasting, I was walking past the power plant which had smoke, and the smoke was sort of zapping around across my whole screen like a fractal anomaly bug, you know. There's all sorts of bugs and quirks and issues like that, and it has improved since they did an update, a full client update last week, which was 50 gig download. So rip people's data caps there,
I know, right?
and
Jeez.
then they did server upgrades on Monday, or was it? Well, they did server upgrades this week. I can't remember the exact day. They did server upgrades, and that seems to have improved things a lot too. And they'll do more server upgrades and stuff like that. But you have to ask, why are they doing this after they launched the game? Why didn't they do this in their high profile beta, which had its own brand? Why didn't they do this months ago? Why didn't they delay this game if it wasn't going to be ready? That's where the greed comes in. It's like, you know, they should have identified that this game needed to be delayed. Like Battlefield got a slight delay, and there's nothing wrong with that because even Battlefield is kind of buggy compared to some previous Battlefields. I find in Battlefield 5 there's this issue where some of the gun scopes are misaligned. I've been like
Yeah.
testing it
And some of
and
the
tracking it.
textures when you first load, like they look
Oh yeah,
ugly.
yeah. Level
Yeah.
of detail gets stuck,
Well,
and
Jazz, I mean, like, is your point about the Fallout beta? That was more a marketing demo. They
that's
presented
what
it
I mean. They shouldn't do that.
right. I know, and people like even my buddy was like, it was a beta. I'm like, no, it wasn't a beta. It was a marketing demo because they tied it to pre-orders. Pre-order now and get early act. Like. So
Yeah,
no, yeah, I
that's
guess you could
screwed up.
say they're testing their servers, but first and foremost, it was tied to pre-orders. It was a demo. And here's the thing, because that I really do think happened. I think people were fine with the idea of an online Fallout 76. Like the reaction coming out from E3 was
Well,
was
that
was fine, but
this is the response. This is a response to the kind of mods people have been making. There are multiplayer mods for Fallout 4, and they're very popular. So, like, the logical conclusion is, let's make a multiplayer Fallout.
right. But what I'm saying is the hate for Fallout didn't actually start. Unlike Battlefield 5, when the hate for Battlefield 5 started, as soon as they revealed the game with the women, like the hate for that game was the whole social justice warrior aspect and what the CEOs and executives were saying about their consumers. It had nothing to do with the game itself because nobody had played it yet, right?
Mm.
Fallout 76, people were fine with the reveal because Todd Howard can sell anything to anybody, right? The problem was when the beta started and people got their hands on it and people were watching it being streamed, it just didn't live up to their expectations. And that's when people turned against the game. Is that I actually played it and they didn't like it. And I don't care if you want to call it a stress test server. When you're playing a product and you're like, you know what, this isn't worth my $60, I'm not going to buy it. You have some issues there. Now you told me earlier it's number one on the Xbox UK software chart.
Yeah.
But I also can't help the fact that Amazon has it on sale for $35 right now. It's
yeah, and
$40.
Xbox has it on sale too.
Xbox has, and look, and some people will say, well, that's Black Friday, but like, it literally came out a week ago. I don't. Battlefield 5's not on sale yet. You
Sea
know,
of Thieves didn't go on sale that quick.
I mean, like, yeah, Red Dead, I think 2 of the editions are on sale, but not the base one. Call of Duty's on sale because the game came out in early October. Same thing with Tomb Raider. But I can't help but think that the sales for Fallout 76 are not what Bethesda wanted. And I can't imagine them thinking that they would have to drop price in a week. I think they're just using, the cover of Thanksgiving and Black Friday as like we can just say, oh, it's a Black Friday deal, but I honestly think this game is not going to sell well. We already saw some reports from the UK, even though it doesn't include digital, which would be a big factor in this, saying that it's like 80% down on Fallout 4.
That's just a silly figure to reference because UK physical retail is dead across the board.
True,
No
I
one
understand that.
goes out and buys clothes. No one goes out and buys food. Everything's online now in the UK because no one wants to go outside. So I mean, like I was literally reading an article about UK retail today, where it was comparing like Black Friday scenes in America to Black Friday scenes in the UK, and there was literally just nobody outside shopping. They were all doing it on Amazon.
All I'm saying is we don't have any data points for
Yeah, we don't know.
the
We
ones
don't
we
know how
have
the
are
sales are
good.
doing.
On sale a week later, that's not a good sign.
No, it
No.
isn't. It isn't. And I'm not. I ain't deluded into thinking like this game is for everyone. But my defense of it, I mean, I'm not even saying it's a good game. My defense of Fallout 76 stems from I knew what to expect because I do play games like Conan Exiles, and I got about 70 hours in Conan Exiles. I rented a server for a long time, and really enjoyed that game. Even Minecraft. I like playing Minecraft. I like building things. I like surviving. Blah blah blah. I knew what to expect going in. I knew it wasn't going to be narrative heavy, which I feel like some people didn't. I knew it wasn't going to be like have the branching narratives and have all the story stuff. They said right from the outset there wasn't going to be any NPCs in the game and all that sort of stuff. And I knew it was going to be very sort of Fallout 4 light. But the things that I do enjoy about Fallout, like stealthing around, leveling up, scavenging, building, getting upgrades, all that environmental narrative, like holotapes and notes and exploring the world. And the world is absolutely massive. There's tons of stuff to find, and there's daily quests, and there's events like Destiny, and players all come together and kill a giant monster and stuff like that. It's fun, when it works. And I had low expectations, so maybe that's part of it. And I think people who expected this to be like, I don't know, the next big multiplayer game, like where they just nailed everything. I mean, I never expected that personally. There's so many things in Fallout 76 that don't work. Like for example, there's a meme, right, about Skyrim and Fallout 3 and 4 and New Vegas, where like you're always over encumbered and managing your inventory,
Yeah, and
right?
I hate that. I hate that.
That is amplified by 1,000 in 76 because a your inventory space is limited even more because the server doesn't want to track that much data, Bethesda said. So like, not only is your personal stash very limited, your own inventory is pretty limited too, unless you spec into strength, which I haven't. Um, so, and part of that's my fault for not specking into strength. But the thing is, I have to like stop every few minutes to manage my inventory, which is annoying. Now imagine if I'm playing with 4 friends, and there's 4 of us stopping to manage our inventory every 5 minutes. It's just dumb, you know. And like that's one aspect of the game which doesn't work in multiplayer. But also the VATs. The VATs feel like in for those who don't know, in Fallout 4 you can sort of pause time or slow it down and then target limbs and then you get this slow motion cinematic kill. The VATs in Fallout 76 obviously can't do that because the server's in real time because it's a multiplayer game. So the compromise is that they sort of work like Fallout, like Soldier, um, like you know, I can't. What is his name? Soldier 76.
Soldier 76. Who are you talking about?
Oh my God, his name's Soldier 76
Who is?
in Overwatch.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I was really confused then because I was like, am I just thinking his name's Soldier 76 because of Fallout 76?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah,
But no,
it's
yeah,
Fallout.
it's his name. Okay, so Soldier 76, who's very aptly named, like his ultimate in Overwatch lets him auto aim, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly how VATS work in Fallout 76. So like it's far less satisfying than VATS in the main Fallout games. And also because the server everything's bound to the server, there's less gore. There's no limbs falling off and stuff like that, or at least to a decreased amount because it doesn't want to because everything in the area is budgeted. Like there's only allowed to be so many items in a particular area. So like if you're blowing the limbs off enemies and stuff like that, it just adds to the item budget of the area and creates lag. And right now I'm walking through Charleston, which is a very populated area full of houses, buildings, and all of them have like non-instanced interiors. So like you can literally just open the door and walk in without a loading screen, which I think adds even more lag. And like even on the X right now, I'm down to about 12 frames per second right now, scrolling
Ugh.
through this area.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's bad. It is not good, man. And
Ugh.
like that's just the game. I feel like that's just the game like loading in all the objects as I'm slowly walking around. Like no, oh no, okay. So there's 2 players here now, and they are that simply them being here is creating lag for me.
That sucks. How you
Frame
supposed to?
rate lag.
Yeah. So, so Jez, there was a comparison I made in a video yesterday that I can't help. I wanted to get more of your take on this, but for whatever reason, Fallout 76 reminds me a lot of Sea of Thieves. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
In like the
but
reception that it got from critics and a lot of players. Like critics hate Fallout 76. You can look at the user score, they hate it, right? But there seems to be a small, very small minority that love Fallout 76. And I look at Sea of Thieves, another game from a AAA publisher, a AAA game, just like Fallout. Even though, like, you could say Fallout has more content and all that stuff, where Sea of Thieves didn't, and Sea of Thieves didn't have a lot of bugs, but man, like, were publishers harsh on that game, or not publishers, reviewers were harsh on that game,
see, exactly. That's
right?
that's the thing. That's the thing that I don't get is like I feel like reviewers have been harsher on Fallout 76 than they were on Sea of Thieves,
So that
which I think is unfair.
I look at like the Metacritic for both, and Sea of Thieves is like a 68, and Fallout's like a 50,
See,
and I'm
that
like,
that just doesn't make sense to me. There's so much more rich content and features and systems in Fallout 76 than Sea of Thieves. Now, I'm not bashing Sea of Thieves because it's sort of like it's a bit of a different kind of game, and I kind of get what Rare is going for. But in terms of content density, value for money, I can't compute that Fallout 76 is scoring lower than Sea of Thieves personally. I mean,
Yeah.
you could argue that maybe the bugs and stuff don't bother me as much as other people, maybe. And it's so buggy. It's so broken. Like every time I log on, you encounter some small annoyance every two minutes, I would say, which ain't good.
No,
I mean,
definitely not.
literally just now, as I said that, I my client froze up when I was trying to access a crafting table. You know, because there's two guys in the building next to me making my game lag simply by being there.
You know what's going to happen, right? Is that everybody who hates Fallout will stop talking about it because they've moved on. And
Yeah.
what will eventually happen is months down the road, a community that likes the game will spring and grow, right? Just like what happened with Sea of Thieves. Like
Yeah.
everybody who hated Sea of Thieves stopped playing it, and now there is a dedicated but small group of people that love what they're doing with Sea of Thieves. The same thing's going to happen. People are going to move away from Fallout, and they'll target the next game, whether it's going to be Anthem or Division, or who knows where the outrage machine moves to next,
Well,
right?
this is the thing about Fallout. Like, I don't think I haven't got much faith in the future of Sea of Thieves personally, and I was really excited for that game. I love pirates. I love the ocean combat is so impressive in Sea of Thieves, and I always felt like there was this huge amount of potential, and I was kind of married to the potential in Sea of Thieves more than the execution, I think. But like that's different in Fallout 76. The execution is mostly there. Um, the problem is well, the systems are mostly there. The problem is like the execution of the technology of their servers and stuff, like getting their engine working efficiently in the cloud, just seems like something they haven't really addressed in a credible way yet. And I'm more confident that they can solve Fallout and make it work than Sea of Thieves can transform into a game that I will personally enjoy because things about Sea of Thieves, like I don't like the focus on cosmetics. I find cosmetic loot to be fun as a side thing, but not as the main thing. So like when I get an upgrade weapon in Fallout 76, it's way more compelling than just getting a weapon skin. Um, I also prefer Fallout to Destiny 2 because the environment is so much more interesting and rich and full of things to find, and it isn't just like a sort of empty place to grind mobs, you know.
Right.
Um, but it's just broken, man. I think if they do a No Man's Sky and sort of re-release it a year down the line with a big content update that addresses feedback, basically abuse the good faith of those like me who have deluded themselves into enjoying it and use us as beta testers and then re-release it with a big content update in a year, it can find its footing. I think it's better than Elder Scrolls Online. You know, I just I just enjoy it.
All right, so last question, and then we're moving on to PlayStation and E3. So this is gonna be good. Um, do you think Bethesda has to worry about all the negativity around this game seeping into Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6,
Now
considering
this
they've
is the
already,
interesting thing, yeah. And
since
like,
they've said it's going to use the same engine, clearly
yeah.
engine has issues with this game. I don't think it'll affect like Rage 2, some of their other, games that are from different publishers. But do you feel like that hatred will kind of start seeping into their other products just like it kind of has with EA and their games?
Well, this is the thing you see. Like, I noticed, when Bethesda started doing their own little showcase at E3, and
Mhm.
they started to sort of bill their games under one brand, the Bethesda brand. I kind of felt like they were trying to do a Blizzard and sort of build up a passionate fan base around their IP as a sort of, like ecosystem of content. Now, that's a double-edged sword because in one sense, it will uplift all of your brands and stuff like that together, and make everyone become a fan of your company's brand. But on the flip side, if you make a fuck up, it fucks everything up. And we've seen that with Diablo Immortal with Blizzard right now. Like you've seen the drama from Diablo Immortal
Yep, that's true.
seep into World of Warcraft subreddit. And there's like now Kotaku posted rumors that Blizzard are working on a Warcraft themed Pokemon Go. I don't know if you saw this.
What?
Yep.
Oh man,
Yep.
that's gonna go over well.
Yeah, so the World of Warcraft subreddit's upset about that. And also in the same article, Kotaku said that since Mike Morhaime retired from Blizzard, Activision has been taking a more prominent role in decision making.
Yeah, that they're becoming more intertwined, which I don't think gamers really want. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. If all your brands under one roof, if one game starts screwing up, it affects the other games too. So I think like if Bethesda lets this become a meme, I mean, I've noticed they've been pretty quiet lately, but like if they let this become a sort of meme, they've sort of they will hurt their other games, and I feel like Battlefront 2 hurt EA.
Yes, clearly
hurt them. So,
all right, I think it could have. I think they might have some issues. I think they need to just build a new engine. That engine is broken and old, and I find it sad that they're still going to use it for next gen. Like Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. I don't know. I think they just need. It's not like they don't have the money. Invest, build a new engine, and some of the complaints will be gone. But moving on from Fallout 76, E3 2019, Jez, did you think we'd be talking about E3 2019 in November?
Yeah, that is weird, isn't it?
It is incredibly weird. And so I think it was last week, the news dropped because we did a podcast right after XO on Sunday, and we didn't do a podcast the rest of the week. But news dropped that Sony isn't going to be at E3. They're not doing a conference. They don't have any show floor space, so they're not going to demoing anything. They're not running any sort of like outside the show conference like EA does, and kind of like how Microsoft did last year. They were kind of like 1 foot in to the E3 and 1 foot out. Like they're just completely pulled out. They're like, yeah, we're not going to be there. And wow, was that like a huge talking point? You had people from all sides. Oh man, this is it for Sony. I'm so concerned. Oh man, what could this possibly mean? PlayStation 5, do they have no games? Like everybody had an opinion about exactly what is going on here. And I know me and you haven't talked about it at all together.
No, we haven't.
So I think the first thing it kind of shows is that there's no way the PlayStation 5 is next year, right?
Yeah.
There's no way PlayStation 5 is 2019. So you're looking at 2020 at the earliest. Now the question is, do you think this is more to do with the irrelevance or the continuing irrelevance of E3? Or is it more to do with Sony not having new games to show because they haven't announced the PlayStation 5 yet and don't want to put on a show where they run the same things they've ran previously because they recently canceled PSX for this year, and the reason they gave was because they said they don't have enough games to bring people together. And if that's the reason why they canceled PSX, they didn't do Gamescom, they didn't do Paris Games Week this year, they canceled PSX, now they're not showing up to E3. Is it just that they don't have anything new that would excite people because they're not ready to show the PlayStation yet, and they're just like, screw it, we're just not going to spend the money. We're not going to do a show and have everybody disappointed with it. We'll just run our own show later on. I mean, what do you think about the whole situation?
Well, I think what it shows more than anything is that E3 isn't the be-all and end-all now. I mean, with YouTube, with Twitch, they can just sort of bide their time and wait till they're really ready, and put together a good show. They've done it with PSX in the past. and I don't think it's fair to say E3 is irrelevant now. I mean, a lot obviously obviously E3, the ESA Software Association, they were like pretty defensive about this whole thing, and they released a bunch of stats that showed E3 2018 was the biggest ever in terms of engagement. I mean, you can fiddle those figures however you want, I guess, but the fact of the matter is that E3 is still very big. It's covered in mainstream press, whereas PSX probably wouldn't be. So, there's always BBC correspondence and big news outlets at E3. So it's still a big deal. I don't think it's irrelevant, but it does show that you can reach gamers wherever they are now.
Well,
And
that's true. That's true.
so I think I don't know what Sony's real reasons are for it. I'm not going to sit here and say they've got no games or anything like that, because clearly they do have lots of games in development. And who was it? Supermassive Games said they had a bunch of games
Right,
in
but I
development.
mean, presumably most of those games are for the PlayStation 5. But I think it's
Well,
clear
that's the
Sony
thing. Is there
doesn't
going to
want to
be
show
like,
the PlayStation 5 yet.
yeah,
So you can't show those games.
yeah? I mean, I
Uh,
suppose it depends how they want to line up that narrative. It's like, do they want to? Because a lot of these PlayStation 5 games, they ain't going to be PlayStation 5 exclusive. Presumably, they'll be like across both. You don't just ignore an install base of tens of millions out the gate.
well, yeah, I mean, there's rumors that Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima, and Last of Us Part 2 will be cross-gen games, which isn't really a surprise. Did you think this means they're out of E3 for good? Like, do you think they pull out
No,
this year and come back for 2020?
they'll come back. They're
You
not
think
out of
so?
it for good. No way. They're out of it for good. There's no way they're gonna give up sort of. I'd be really shocked if they quit E3 for good. I feel like they would have said they were quitting E3 for good if they were going to do
Because
that.
like, I guess it depends on when the system's coming out, the PlayStation 5, right? If it's coming out end of 2020 in November, then yeah, you come back to E3 in 2020 and you just blow people away with a good reveal of stuff. But you're right. I don't know. I don't think they said they were completely skipping. I guess we'll find out, next year or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's weird because every single year people grade E3. They talk about who won and who lost. Like E3 is this, the Super Bowl of the video game industry, and then like all of a sudden like it's nothing now. Nobody cares, right? I totally I see people going that direction. Like E3 is all important, and then the next day because Sony pulled out, oh, E3 doesn't matter. You know what I mean, right, Jazz?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of true though. I mean, if you're only really interested in what Sony has to offer, then for you it becomes irrelevant. But like people forget that the vast majority of traffic generated from E3 is usually based on third party stuff. Either it's third party reveals Xbox and PlayStation's respective shows, or their own conferences. Like Bethesda's conference is always really big. I mean, EA's conference is always kind of big in a sort of cringe gallery sort of way. God, I don't think I've ever seen an EA conference that just wasn't cringe at some point. But
Yeah.
Nintendo often skip it, don't they?
Nintendo. I mean, yeah, they haven't done a conference. They do like Nintendo Directs, which are just like pre-recorded videos they release at a certain point. But yeah, they haven't. They're still there. Like they still have boot space, for people to play their games. They just don't put on a traditional conference.
Is Sony not even having floor space?
Apparently that's the whole thing. Is like they won't have floor space. They're gone, completely gone. So that's why I'm wondering if they'll be back, for 2020. I mean, I think what you said in the beginning is right. Like you don't need E3 anymore because of the way social media is now. You can do a show and have it streamed on Twitch, have it streamed on Mixer, have it streamed everywhere. And people would tune in. And there's a little bit of like sharing the news cycle at E3, right? Where Sony
Yeah.
does something, Microsoft does something, EA does something, everybody does something. So you're all like vying for people's attention. Sony may just think, you know what? We'll just do something of our own later and they'll still get all their attention. They'll still, whenever Sony will put on an event, if say they do one in August or September, right? They'll still get all the attention. All the press will be there. Everybody, will be talking about it. So I don't think it's that big of an issue for Sony whatsoever.
I don't either.
Just like Microsoft had all the attention for XO18.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, though. It's not a big issue for Sony, but people will be looking at Xbox to double deliver now.
Well, that's the next part of the question was like, how can Xbox capitalize on this scenario of Sony gone, no news from them? They have everybody's attention now, right? Yeah, even though EA and Ubisoft have their own conferences, nobody really talks about them. It's always Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. Well, PlayStation's not going to be there. So all eyes are going to be on Xbox. And some have argued that this is Microsoft's best chance to showcase to people at the biggest event why Xbox is going to be needed or a formidable force going into the future without Sony there to, screw it up for them later that night, right? So is it in Microsoft's best interest to pull out all the stops for this? Showcase some games that they may not be ready to showcase to show like, hey, we just bought 7 studios and we're working on games, but we weren't ready to show them, but we're going to give you a sneak peek so you know that the future of Xbox is vibrant. And you're not going to have Sony later on that night coming out with Last of Us Part 2 and just being like grabbing everybody's attentions. What do you think about that, Jez?
I don't think Microsoft's going to react too hard to this news. I think they're just going to sort of do. I mean, they've been putting on good shows the last few years. I think they're just going to.
I mean, you said they didn't react, but Phil Spencer was sure to tweet out that they had a lot to show at E3, and so was the official Xbox accounts.
Yeah, but like, I think that was showing commitment to the ESA in part. But yeah, I suppose I just mean like I don't think you're gonna see like celebrities on stage or like laser shows or whatever.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying what is the biggest problem people have with Xbox right now? If you had to point to one singular thing. Games, right? So if you show people the games that you're making for next gen, then if those people are true in their reasons for not liking the brand, then that's what people want to see. That's what you got to show them. I don't know. Like
there's a worry though, because what if those games ain't ready, and you don't want to get into another Crackdown situation? You don't want to blow your load too early. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's that scenario. You don't want to be in a Scalebound situation or a Fable Legends situation or a Crackdown situation where 2 of those games get delayed and one of those games end up being like a 5-year developmental adventure, right?
And like for example, I think we're gonna see Gears 5 and stuff like that, and stuff we know is coming. I think like we could potentially see stuff from some of the studios that are working on. We'll probably see more of Wasteland 3, for example. We might see Ninja Theory's stuff if they've concepted it out already, and but things like the Initiative, I still think like it might be too early to see what the Initiative's working on, because that company doesn't like. It's so new. It doesn't even have like a company culture yet or anything like that.
Well, I didn't say the Initiative, Jazz. I don't think the Initiative's games will be ready until 2022 at the earliest. Like, and that's a good case scenario, Like it probably more in 2023 or 2024.
Yeah.
But I do think there's an opportunity here for Microsoft. They'll have all the media attention to themselves. And since Sony's not putting on the show, there'll be a lot of third parties that are looking to showcase their games on the biggest stage. And Microsoft might have the pick of the litter on that one, right?
More Cyberpunk.
More Cyberpunk? You think Well, didn't you say you thought Cyberpunk was actually coming out sooner rather than later?
Well, maybe. But like I remember how I remember how CD Projekt Red reacted to other RPGs that came out while they were making The Witcher 3. And now I'm wondering is after Red Dead, are they gonna add an extra year to the development cycle just to try and one up them? Because they want to be the best, man. They CD Projekt Red have like this desire to be on Rockstar's level. And like Red Dead blew me away in terms of how much it went beyond. I had high expectations for that game, but it beat them. I don't know if it beat them for you, but it beat them for me.
Red Dead, yeah, Red Dead exceeded my expectations. Although, like, I still have issues with the controls. Like, it's like Red Dead does everything better than any other game. You know, open world, visuals, content, story, narrative, characters, like everything. And the one thing that it stumbles over is the most basic thing of all, and that's the controls. That's the shooting. And it's just like I can overlook that stuff because I didn't have that big of an issue with the aiming once I set it for myself. You know, I changed some settings around, but the inertia based control system where like you tap left and then a couple seconds later you start moving, I had more of an issue with the cover system. You know, when you get into a firefight and you want to take cover. But
Mm.
yeah, it's like, how can you do everything so good and the most basic stuff is it's not up to par? You know what I mean? Like they're lucky that game and
I
the
like the control.
but I'm just saying they're lucky that the game is as good as it is. That people are willing to overlook the most basic fundamentals of a game, the gameplay, and overlook that and be like, this game's still a masterpiece, despite the issues that people have with the controls. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because if that was any other game, it'd be people would just crap all over it.
it'd be salty.
Yeah. So I don't know. The other thing about this whole situation of Sony not being there is I do wonder if about Microsoft announcing a next gen system at E3 to get the jump on Sony, or do you think that would be too reactionary? Like if they know, and I think Microsoft knows exactly what Sony's doing with the PlayStation 5, and I think Sony knows exactly what Microsoft is doing with the PlayStation 5, or vice versa. You know what I mean? They both know what
Yeah.
each other's doing.
Yeah.
If Microsoft knows that Sony's going to announce a PlayStation 5 at the some point in this year, do you think they get the jump on them and announce an Xbox successor at E3?
They could do it. They could do it like I thought the Scorpio announcement cycle was very successful. Like the sort of tease, the code name drop. You know, everyone had the little Scorpio badges in their names. It was good. It was good virality. You know, and I thought that was a good, dynamic, organic, a good. It struck a conversation with the fans, and I think Microsoft could stand to take risks like that a bit more. They're often very sort of like secretive about what they're working on and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I think a tease at the very least. Maybe they could even drop the project name again, or maybe people would think that is reactionary or pandering to do. But
I mean, they already kind of announced it, like Mahler says in the chat. Phil already announced it, and that I mean that is kind of true. They already announced at this past E3 that they are
yeah, but
working
they
on.
didn't give us a brand to hook
Well,
onto.
right,
I mean,
they said
we know
multiple
it's
consoles.
yeah. We presume that it's called Project Scarlet. Um, I haven't actually found hard evidence of that. Like I've been told that it's called well, they are called Scarlet because what I've been told is that there's going to be multiple Xbox consoles in the lineup for whatever Scarlet
Oh,
is. Scarlet is now this is what I've heard. I've heard that Scarlet isn't a code name for a specific console, but it's a code name for an initiative and a project team working on multiple next gen
so
devices.
it's kind of like a code name for the line of next gen Xbox consoles
Yeah,
rather
like
than a specific one.
if we've got like Xbox One is the code name for the lineup we've got now, like the base one, that One S and One X. Scarlet is the code name for the family of devices that will push next gen. I've heard there's going to be multiple SKUs of Xbox and multiple power levels. You know, I don't know if this is true. I don't have evidence, but I've heard I've basically heard there's going to be an S2 and an X2 for different price tiers at different power points. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. And then you've got this whole diskless console, which we'll talk about in a minute. Confusing things too. Now that isn't part of Scarlet family. That's part of the Xbox One family.
Yeah, but I kind of want to just expand on this idea of multiple SKUs. Do you think that's a good strat? I mean, the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, they launched with just a singular SKU, $500, $400, right? Sure, later on, they added both a premium SKU, PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox One X, PS4 Slim, Xbox One S. So you think, or at least what you've heard, is that that'll be at the launch. There'll be a base SKU and there'll be a premium SKU.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. So if I'm just kind of thinking about it, the base SKU will be cheaper than the PlayStation 5 to run with the price point of it, saying that, hey, get an Xbox 2 at $399 or $350, and then the premium SKU will be more expensive and obviously probably more powerful than the PlayStation 5.
I mean, you'd hope so, right?
Well, that's the only reasons you would run two SKUs like that.
Exactly. I mean, again, this is what I've heard, and I don't know if it's true. I don't have evidence, which is why I haven't written it up. Like when I talk about rumors on the podcast, it's just like, it's just conversational with you guys. Like if I write it up on Windows Central, that's when I've got hard evidence and I'm confident that it's real. But I think it's an interesting way to ensure that they don't lose that power narrative. Even if they've got a more expensive console, they don't lose that power narrative. And for people who are willing to pay more, they can get it. And we know that people are willing to pay more to get the best, because the iPhone X, XR, and XS, and you've got Samsung Galaxy S, and the Note 9, and all the different phone SKUs they're doing now, because they're trying to hit every price point. And every other electronics manufacturer does this. You've got laptops hit multiple SKUs. You've got 3 different levels of Surface to choose from. You've got 3 or 4 different levels of Surface Book to choose from, all at different price points to match different needs. And because of the way the Xbox development is set up, it's easy for developers to target different power levels with one code base. And that's the way Microsoft's been setting up their Xbox development for a while, is where it can just be ship a 4K version and then ship a 900p 1080p version, and it's supposedly supposed to be easy. Don't know if it is, because I'm not a developer, but that's the idea behind it. And it works for PC, it works for mobile phones. Why shouldn't it work for consoles? Is the ultimate ask there,
Well, I mean, phones are also essential to daily life for most part. At least now it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
consoles are still
tablets on, iPads on.
True, but I mean, I still think phones. People need phones. In this day and age,
that was just an example. But
I get the example.
Tell me a single other consumer electronic that doesn't have multiple SKUs at different price points.
I mean, they all pretty much do. For the consumer that wants everything, there's always the highest one. There's mid ranges, low ranges. Yeah. I think it makes because it seems like Microsoft is literally going to target everybody next gen. You want power, boom, here's the premium SKU. You want next gen, but you don't want to pay great prices or high prices, boom, here's a system for you. You want to stream a really cheap option, boom, we got streaming cover for you. You know what I mean, with the streaming console, supposedly, right? Now
that's how you hit mass market. I mean, that's the only reason Windows Phone achieved any penetration, was because they had a Lumia that was literally $100. Nobody bought the high end Lumias. They all bought the cheap ones. And like when you've got that market share, you hook people into the ecosystem. You can sell them Game Pass, you can sell them Xbox Live, blah blah blah. I feel like Microsoft's really doubling down on, targeting every niche they can, which is another reason why they're making these like AA games, and they aren't they're doing the complete opposite of Sony. Whereas Sony is catering towards that very high end sort of aspirational sort of game. It feels like Microsoft's catering to a sort of diaspora of niches.
No, I think Microsoft is just they have their AAA games, and then they'll also have their mid-range games. Like,
Well, that's what I mean. It's like Wasteland 3 isn't going to be a mass market hit. It's CRPGs are such a niche, you know.
right, but Sony funds some lower end games like Astrobot for PSVR, Gravity Rush games. And not every like single one of their games that comes out is some Concrete Genie or Dreams. Not every one of their games that comes out is this like huge
Yeah.
AAA
No, it was
juggernaut.
just it was just an example, like
Right.
they're gonna have the streaming for phones. They're gonna have diskless for people who don't want discs. They're gonna
Well,
have
yeah. So
premium
let's
in
talk about
theory.
that. Let's talk about the discless Xbox One, which was put out there as a rumor by Brad Sams of Thoreau.com.
It's a row, it's a row.
Thoreau, whatever. I always say it wrong. I think somebody always, tells me that in the videos, like, you say it wrong, right? So he says that there's a new Xbox One coming out next year, and they're removing the disk drive, as well as another revision of the Xbox One S that will keep the disk drive. So there's the options. This also includes some sort of proposed disc to digital program where you could take your physical games to a participating retailer like the Microsoft Store, and they'll give you digital codes in exchange. Now, this has really kind of struck a nerve with some people, especially like the physical purists, the ones that are like, I'll only buy this game if it's physical, right?
Mhm.
And like they fear that like this is a test or just kind of like a step in the direction that Microsoft eventually will release a console without any disk drive, period, where you can't get any physical media, which I'm sure maybe 15 years down the road, but like I can't imagine. And Brad Sam said this in his like article. He said that Microsoft hasn't decided if they're going to include a disk drive in Project Scarlet, which I find to be absolutely ludicrous
Of course they
because
will.
they
Yep.
absolutely will. Because the market that still buys physical is still like it's still 60-40 in favor of physical. Yeah, digital has really come up in recent years. And someone's calling my house. As usual, whenever we do this podcast, somebody always calls and nobody answers the phone. But of course they're going to offer that because just imagine that like there's a large group of people who only buy physical, and if you take out the disk drive, you're telling those people we don't need you, right? And then your competitor, PlayStation, would love to be able to go on stage and be like, "We got a disk drive for you." It would be the exact
They get eaten alive.
it would be the exact repeat of the used games thing that helped the PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
So, like the fact that he says that they haven't thought about it yet, I think they haven't fully figured out the specs of all of stuff yet. If that's the case, then yeah, I agree with that. But there will be a disk drive in that system, and if there isn't, Microsoft is dumb. They are incredibly dumb, and they deserve to get their ass handed to them for next generation because Sony will eat their lunch again. That's my little rant. What do you think, Jez?
I agree entirely. I think like there's no way that thing doesn't have a disk drive. No way. I will be shocked. And I think Sam's has got bad information there. But who
I mean, I
knows?
fully believe that all the specs haven't been decided on for the next gen consoles yet.
Yeah, it's just the way he's framed it.
Yeah.
Of course it's gonna have a disk drive. Maybe it's more like they don't know if it's gonna have 4K Blu-ray player or
Now,
something.
I could see a scenario where one of the SKUs doesn't have a disk drive, but there's
Oh, yeah.
going to be one that does.
Yeah, true.
Because otherwise, not to have it is a terrible, terrible idea. Unless, of course, Sony doesn't have one either, and they're in on it behind the scenes. But
What you mean,
then,
like going all digital?
yeah, like if they both decide at the same time to take out the disk drive, forcing everybody to go digital, and it was some like underhanded agreement between Microsoft and Sony. But then again, I can't imagine any of the publishers being happy about that. Like they want to sell as many copies of games as they can, and I'd
But they
imagine
also
if
want to get rid of the used market. They like the idea Microsoft proposes where it's halfway, where it's like, yeah, you can have digital, you can have a disc, but the disc has a license on it, and if you want to get it unlocked, you have to take it to a participating retailer. You know.
which that participating retailer would more than likely be Microsoft Store. I can't imagine.
Well, originally it was going to be all of them: GameStop, Walmart, all that stuff. They had the databases set up and in place. They were all collaborating on it. It was like the whole idea, the whole thinking behind that was to take money out of eBay basically and put it back into the hands of devs so they could make bigger games or buy more yachts or more Ferraris or whatever. I mean, there's always that contention that they're just being greedy, but like you have to wonder, what does eBay do for the games industry really? And that's why we have things like microtransactions, is so they can make money on used games.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess so.
I'm not saying one's right and the other's not right. I'm just saying that's the thinking behind it, is that used games are eating into the game industry's lunch, and the whole idea behind that 2013 backlash was to get more money into the hands of devs.
Yeah,
And now people rejected that, and now we have microtransactions. I mean, you could say maybe we'd have microtransactions anyway, and they'd double dip. Maybe they would.
I think we'd have them anyways.
Yeah, probably.
Like they last
So much
last
money to
gen
be
last
made.
gen they had the online pass. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, you want to play online? Well, you need to give us $10, or you need to buy this game new. That completely failed and blew up in their faces because now the thinking is you need people to like your game has to be online so you can have people like
Engagement.
and you need it to be free so you can get people to play these games and then you can sell them stuff. Look at Fortnite. Look at the free to play model that runs.
Yeah.
Like
But
prevent
we hate that model, right?
who hates that? I'm sure Microsoft and
Ga-
Sony love that model.
Yeah,
It
but
makes them a lot
gamers
of money.
gamers hate that model.
Do they? They don't seem to have an issue with Fortnite's model. This is the most played game in the world.
Yeah, but dude, I read on YouTube, man. People
I
hate free to
mean,
play.
true. People always do that, but the thought was we need to prevent access from we need to make sure people buy this game new and we'll prevent people from playing online by this pass. Where now it's like you want people to play online at all costs. So you can get people addicted to it. So you can get people into it. So you can sell them microtransactions and stuff. And I'm thinking of these games that are going to be influenced by Fortnite in the future and their business model and how that's going to affect not only indie games but also AAA games because you can imagine that you have a bunch of publishers looking at Fortnite and drooling
Oh yeah.
about the money that Epic is making and they're probably wondering we need a game like that. How can we get in on that?
Well,
And
you've already seen it with Blizzard. You got Diablo Immortal coming.
yeah, Diablo Immortal. I mean, is it possible that Call of Duty decides to go free to play at some point? Or spin off maybe a multiplayer portion
Spin
of
off.
it to be free to
Yeah.
play.
And that was always the thing for years, was like, what are they gonna do to you know, turn Call of Duty into sort of this subscription based sort of model.
Which almost is like, if you want people to play and spend more money, is it better to charge for online for like Microsoft does, or have it for free like Sony does for free to play games? Like, is more people playing on Fortnite and spending more money in V-Bucks, which Sony gets a cut of? Does that make up for the loss of revenue of people not subscribing to PlayStation Plus to play that game? You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Kind of makes you wonder, and I would love to see the analytics of that. How many more people play Fortnite and spend more money on PlayStation versus like the same issue? Because to play Fortnite on Xbox, you need gold, and I'm sure Microsoft is loving the extra subscriptions, of people paying for gold to play Fortnite. But you do have to wonder if multiplayer was free, how bigger the games could essentially be, and how much more money they could
That's
make
the thing,
by.
though. Like, Fortnite might not be forever.
Of course, that is true. It could die off at some point. That is very true. That's
I
definitely very
agree.
true.
I think, like, purely on the basis of principle, free to play should mean free to play, but that's
Yeah.
another discussion.
So, Jez, I don't know if you saw Kloberl's tweet about Microsoft considering a new studio acquisition potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spoken to him, so I don't know the particulars. Do you have any?
Yeah, so he said that Microsoft is considering looking into IO Interactive, the makers of Hitman.
No,
And
I've heard that rumor for a while, but I kind of feel like, is that a good bet to make? Because do they still own the rights to their IP? What kind of deal did they do with Warner Brothers?
so I was told, and from what I know, Square Enix still owns the Hitman IP. It's just that IO Interactive has the exclusive rights to use the IP.
That is
Hitman doesn't
strange.
own it. But
So
I can
basically,
imagine.
IO has skewered their margins by paying two license holders.
See, there's a lot of misinformation that floats around. See, Ermi in chat, shout out to you. He says IO and IO Interactive owns Hitman. That's not true. Look at any of the trailers. Look at all the stuff that plays before the game. It basically says, and even you can even look at IP ownership on the U.S. like website. The Hitman IP is owned by Square Enix. It says that IO Interactive has been given the exclusive license or exclusive rights to use that license. They don't own it. As far as I know, and as far as the people I've talked to that would know, that's what they've told me. Now, I don't think Microsoft would be interested in IO Interactive for Hitman because clearly I think the mistake they made with Hitman 2016 was making it episodic. I think people are over episodic content, right? Like, look at Telltale, look at Life is Strange, look at all these different episodic games that just people just don't care about anymore. I think people are over episodic content, and that kind of ruined Hitman. Ruined it for me because I didn't care. You release Hitman 2, a fully fledged package with all the stuff, and nobody really seems to care, even though it's a good game. So I don't think they're interested in Hitman. I think they just, it's like Matt Booty said, they're interested in studios of a certain size to be able to that can release a game in a 2 to 3 year cadence for Xbox Game Pass, get more content. And IO Interactive is independent, and they're not that big of a studio. So you look into it and decide, hey, what we can pick up, because I think they're going to be in really bad financial problems after the sales of Hitman 2 come in. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I
It's a
think that
shame because, like, Hitman 2 is really good,
it
but
is, but I don't think anybody cares. So, like, I think they're going to be in trouble, just like Obsidian was in trouble, just like In Exile was in trouble.
yeah, Bard's
And
Tale didn't do that well.
right, so I'm saying like they're going to be like looking like, what do we do here? And Microsoft is obviously looking for developers to make games. So do you pick them up? Be like, make what you want, make a brand new IP, and we can just put it in Game Pass or something. I think that would be great. But
I
I
don't
think
think
Microsoft.
Microsoft is like. I think, like, people think. I almost feel like people think Microsoft are buying studios for optics at this point. I think Microsoft just wouldn't buy them on a whim. They'd have to have a concept. They'd have to have games planned. They'd have to have a solid example of what they're going to deliver for Microsoft. I don't think Microsoft's just going to buy them for the sake of it.
You don't think so?
Oh,
I mean, clearly they're
I
only
hope
going to
so.
buy them if the price is right, if it works well with their other studios and the type of content they want to make. Obviously, just because they're available doesn't mean you should get them, right? So they would. I mean, that's what they said.
Picking
They're
up,
being
picking up
considered.
picking up Obsidian and In Exile. That makes sense from a perspective of Microsoft's trying to build up their PC credibility. They've got Age of Empires, which is a very beloved franchise and still very credible. You know, Age of Empires tournaments do really well on Twitch and stuff like that, and even now. And they've got like Age of Empires Definitive Edition, which was well received by the community. They've got a very small but passionate PC fan base there, and like growing it out with more PC focused games like Wasteland and the CRPGs that presumably Obsidian are going to make. That makes sense. But for me, I don't really see what sense IO Interactive makes. They make very good games, but without the Hitman brand, I feel like their value as a studio is a little bit diminished. Making like a stealth IP from scratch probably isn't something Microsoft would want to do. I don't know.
I'm not saying it has to be stealth. I'm just saying, like, look
Have
and
they
look.
have they proven themselves out? Have they proven themselves outside of that genre?
I mean, they did Kane and Lynch before Hitman
Which was
Absolution. I don't know, like, and Klober says it does. It's not like something that's happening. It's just that Microsoft is considering looking into it, just like I'm sure they considered looking into buying EA and looking into buying Valve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a weird rumor.
Yeah, it is. And
How do
I
you define looking into?
look, if it came down to, hey, IO is going to dissolve, then I would be like Microsoft. I think there's a talented developer there. Definitely makes more sense getting them than Compulsion Games and I'm sorry to break your heart in Exile. You know what I mean? So I don't know. As much as I would like to see, I don't really see it happening. But it's something that, as a fan of Hitman and a fan of IO Interactive, and just wanting Microsoft to just have more studios to be able to make more games at a consistent pace instead of like, oh, there's only one game this year or two games this year. There's like always something. I,
Honestly, what I'd like to see is Microsoft buy developers and fold them into other developers, which I know isn't like what a lot of these developers probably see for the future of their company, but I want to see State of Decay on Gears of War's level. I don't want to see State of Decay 3 being this double A game. I love State of Decay. I love the IP. I love what they're trying to do with it. But I don't want to see it double A again. I want to see that studio grow. I want to see a State of Decay with the open world quality of Hitman. That's what I want to see.
do you think you'll get it though?
I don't know. I mean, an Exile's gonna grow by 30% apparently. Obsidian's gonna grow. Rare's grown. Like all these studios are trying to grow. Like Playground Games is hiring too. There's no reason why. I don't know.
You don't know, but I mean, like, in Exile doesn't have a lot of people anyway, so growing by 30% is like what, 20 people?
They're a pretty big studio, aren't they?
I don't think they're that big. I don't even think they
100
really had
people.
100 people.
Oh, they've got about 200 people.
Really?
They've got two studios. I could be wrong
Hmm.
about that. I'll look
I don't know. Like, I didn't think they were that
Well,
big
they've
of a
got
studio.
they've got the studio. They've got two studios. They've got the studio that makes Bard's Tale, which just released a new expansion, and they've also got the studio making making Wasteland, which is what I'm excited for. And also, do they own the rights to Torment?
I don't know.
I think
Uh,
Paradox, isn't it Paradox that owns the rights to Torment?
I don't know. I don't know.
I want them to buy Paradox.
You want them to buy Paradox? Of course you do, because you
If
like
they, if
some.
if they want to make friends with PC gamers, buy Paradox and let them do whatever they want. That's all they need.
Yeah, Peter Young says In Exile is 70 people with 15 on contract.
Oh, okay, never mind.
So they're not that big. So 30%. So what is that?
I thought there was 70 times two.
20 more people. I guess.
Fair enough.
Look, I love the fact that
That's
Microsoft
small,
bought new
man.
studios,
I thought they were big.
but I'll say it until they prove me wrong. Compulsion games and In Exile, I don't get. In Exile
Oh,
seems
you're
to
wrong.
me, In Exile to me is like, hey, we couldn't get Obsidian, so we'll get In Exile, and then they got Obsidian, which makes In Exile
Well,
kind of redundant.
I don't get it though, because I think Wasteland's better than Pillars of Eternity.
That's just kind of how I saw it. It's just weird that they just bought. I mean, yes, you're right. I think they're going for like they want to appeal to the PC crowd, and those developers are PC orientated. But I just I haven't
You
played.
played Wasteland 2?
No, I haven't played any game
It's
from In
it's
Exile
a
because they don't.
really it's you're underrating them. It's a really rich game. Seriously. Like I like it's janky, but there's a lot of RPG talent there, you know. And I
Well,
felt it was more immersive than Pillars of Exile. But maybe
well,
because I prefer the saying.
for their game, what they do with Microsoft, I'll be interested in. But I'm telling you, until I just compulsion games and In Exile, I just don't get. All the other ones make complete sense to me, and and I can't wait to see what they do. But those two, I just don't get, man. And I won't change my mind until I play whatever their next title is. Even though I didn't really care for State of Decay that much, I gave it like a 7. Uh, I still think there's potential there. I see why people like it, and if given the proper funding to make State of Decay 3 a huge thing, I that's why I'm fine with the Undead Labs buyout, because I can see a potential for like a shared co-op zombie world with all that stuff in it. Sounds great. Some of those other studios, like the two I mentioned, I just don't get. It's almost like they
Well,
bought them because they were.
you need to experience Wasteland before you get it.
Well,
Compulsion. I get not getting compulsion because you're familiar with their stuff, but
yes, yes, and I don't know. We'll have to see what they do. Maybe we think Microsoft was
you
sold on
already know
some.
what they're doing because there's a trailer for Wasteland 3.
I know, but I'm just saying, as far as compulsion goes,
Oh,
is it
yeah,
like
I
one of
don't get
those? Yeah, I mean, like, did Microsoft really like what they were working on, and we're just like, hey, we're open. We're not that big of a studio. I don't know. It seems like
there is something there with compulsion. You know, the Bioshock style artwork and the creepy atmospherics and stuff like that. It's just they need someone to tie the studio together. You know?
yeah. Invader Gaming says In Exile, Compulsion, and Obsidian are Kickstarter darlings. They have their fans and have great ideas. The studios just need more staff and money behind them. That's true.
I agree
Uh,
with that. I think like don't write them off, man.
well,
Like
I've written off
considering
In Exile until I see what they can do for I'm not interested in Wasteland or Bard's Tale. Whatever they do after that is what I'm interested in.
well, if that means you're not interested in RPG.
I am. I just I Wasteland 3. I want to play the previous two Wastelands. Then I'm missing out on the story.
Well, you're not because it's going to be a contained story.
Okay.
It's Wasteland 3 is going to be set in a completely different area. Like Fallout 3 is different to Fallout 2.
Right. So
At least I think it is.
I feel like now's the time we can take some questions so we can get out of here. So Jez can go to sleep or play more Fallout 76 and say to himself, "Why do people hate this game? I love it so much."
I just killed the Grafton monster. This huge sort of slimy beast thing.
So
Pretty pleased with myself.
yeah, so we'll answer some questions. Hit us up with some questions in chat. If you enjoyed the
So
podcast, make sure you give it a thumbs up wherever you are, here on YouTube or iTunes. We'd greatly appreciate it. And Face wants to know, who do you think will reveal their next gen system first, and which company is in better position to do so? Well, I think PlayStation's in a better position to do so. Like, they're the market leader. I mean, I guess you could already argue Microsoft. I mean, if we're talking full reveal, like here are the specs, here are the launch titles. I think Sony will go first, just because I don't think Microsoft will do that at E3. And if Sony's skipping E3, I do feel like they're going to have a show before the end of the year, whether it's PSX or something else, where they unveil the PlayStation 5. You could have a scenario, thinking about it, you could have a scenario play out where Microsoft reveals the Xbox Scarlet at XO19 and Sony reveals the PlayStation 5 at PSX 19.
That'd be interesting.
Like both fan events. I mean, what better way to show? I mean, I guess you say what better way to showcase a new console than with your fans at an event?
Yeah,
And
that's.
maybe that's exactly what would happen. But I don't know. I would guess Sony would show and reveal their stuff first. What do you think, Jez?
I think maybe Sony's been working on it for longer, or so. It's hard to say. Ideally, I'd like them to announce it at the same time, especially for Microsoft's sake, because I think like coming out, I don't think Microsoft can afford to be come out the following year unless Sony really screws up the PS5 somehow. I don't think Microsoft can afford to be a year out with the Xbox.
Yeah. Show and W wants to know: do you think Microsoft merges two of the new studio pickups? Yeah, there's been that talk that they would merge Obsidian or an Exile. At least people thought they would or were going to,
They
but
said outright that they wouldn't do that.
yeah,
I
they
think
wouldn't do that.
part of the whole deal with picking these studios up is that they get to preserve their company culture, right? Now, Obsidian and Exile, they share a common history, along with BioWare. They're sort of from that Interplay Games era and stuff like that. Chris Avalon and Brian Fargo and all those sorts of people. They're all part of the same sort of development community. But now they're sort of very different kinds of studios, and they've got their own culture and their own games they want to work on and projects like that. They said outright that they wouldn't be looking to merge them because that's probably what people immediately thought. Because it makes sense, like it's like the Interplay Games reunion.
Right.
But they ain't gonna do that, I suppose, like unless the studios want, which they currently don't. So, but there will come a point, like came for Lionhead, where it'll be like, you've got to start making us money now. That they ain't gonna like. They've bought these studios, but they're not gonna. Well, I suppose I don't know. I don't know for sure what the plan is now because things have changed since Terry Myerson was in charge of Xbox as a division or what. But there will come a point where these studios have to start making money, and if like maybe 2 games down the line, Obsidian's just had 2 complete flops, there'll come a point where Microsoft has to make a decision.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
So,
that's what people fear is that right now it's all good, but what happens when Obsidian's next game is being worked on and it gets delayed twice and it comes out and doesn't do well? But then the scenario is those games could underperform because if they're made for Game Pass, it's about the subscription, not the individual games. Just kind of how like Netflix is with their service. They
yeah,
could
the
release,
game's changed a bit, hasn't it?
yeah, they could release a show on Netflix and not a lot of people watch it, but it's about the value added to the subscription, not the individual games. It's a completely different kind of way of doing stuff. But yeah, maybe that'll happen down the road, and Obsidian, and some of these studios get bounced. But I don't know. I don't think so. But
I don't think
Hermie
so.
wants to know if Microsoft and Nintendo will make a deal for rare games on the N64 Classic, and if they did, what would Xbox get in return? I don't think they'd make a
Microsoft.
deal.
Well, we both said the opposite thing there. I was gonna say that I could see them making that deal.
I don't see them making that deal because Nintendo wouldn't let Microsoft have GoldenEye, right? Because there was a GoldenEye XBLA game where Microsoft and Nintendo would both get GoldenEye, and Nintendo blocked it at the last second. And even though they're doing a bunch of crossplay stuff now, I really don't think Microsoft is really interested in helping sell Nintendo products because I don't really see what's the benefit for Microsoft if you let them have those rare games to sell the N64 Classic. Like, I don't see how that benefits Microsoft in any way.
Well, there'd be royalties, I guess, but there's also goodwill to gain. Yes.
I mean, for what, like for a future deal?
Yeah, a future streaming. service,
Mm.
Switch kind of deal,
I mean,
maybe.
a lot of beloved 64 titles are rare games. You got the Banjo Kazooie games, Perfect Dark. Uh, Trying to think of some others, but yeah, I mean, the N64 Classic without some of those games, GoldenEye. I don't think they can do GoldenEye either. It's like, what is an N64 Classic? Is it just going to be like
Lilac
Zelda and
Wars.
stuff? Yeah, so
Oh,
I
it's
don't
not even
know.
called Lilac Wars in America. What do you call it? Star Fox.
Star Fox, there you
Star
go.
Fox. Yeah, we call it. I don't know why, but in England it's called Lilac Wars.
So Girthquake wants to know thoughts on Microsoft's expanding into Asia more. So
Oh yeah, so that
that
one.
was something that was I did a video about on Wednesday where Microsoft is, according to some job listings, opening up a Xbox Asia division
I
to
saw
help
that.
like build relationships and close deals, which I think is greatly needed. Because I guess the only people who can close deals right now over there are Chris Charla and Phil Spencer, and they don't go over there that often. And I think there's a lot of games that miss the Xbox platform for whatever reason. One being like maybe those games don't sell well, but you gotta, I don't know, you gotta make the effort there. In my opinion, I think it's worth it. So creating a division there whose goal is to try to build relationships and get partnerships and all that stuff. I think it's a really good idea that should, quite frankly, probably shouldn't have been done way earlier. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree that it should have been done way earlier because at this point it's looking like too little, too late. I mean, the Chinese market is huge. Japan obviously is huge. You've got emerging markets like India, which are huge, and they can't be ignored. If you want to compete on a global level, they cannot be ignored. We talk about Tencent and their dominance and stuff like that, and Microsoft's pretty much conceded that whole market over the years. Um, Breaking it seems like an impossible task though now. But
Yeah.
I ain't a business guy, but better than nothing, I guess. And if it leads to more sort of high profile JRPGs and other sorts of titles hitting Xbox, then it can only be a lot of
So
a lot of a lot of Asian games arbitrarily miss Xbox because they just think there's no market.
yeah,
I don't think that's true.
they don't think there's a an audience for it. But Mr. Goodcat wants to know, Jez, tip of the iceberg. What do you mean?
That's exactly what I mean. Tip of the iceberg.
So I guess what you're saying is don't read too much into Jez's tweets.
Well, I've been hearing things, man. I just like Razer's got this whole CES event coming up where they're going to talk about keyboards and mice for Xbox. Well, what do you need keyboards and mouse for? You need keyboards and mouse for games that have keyboard and mouse support. Now, if you look at Project X Cloud, a lot of those games just would suck with a with touch controls. So you have to imagine what would it look like if you had a mobile device that could play Project X Cloud games. And I kind of feel like I'm being coy because I don't have hard evidence yet. But it feels like Microsoft's. I've been hearing things, man. That Microsoft's looking in that direction to make a device that makes sense for Project X Cloud.
Makes
But don't
sense.
but don't read into it too much because again, I got no evidence. But I just been hearing cool things, man.
Well, why don't you tell me these things? You never tell me these things, Jez. I
I'm
want to
pretty
know
sure I
cool
did tell
stuff.
you this one.
Oh yeah, you might have. I might have.
Because
Anyways,
I think it's cool because I like the whole mobile stuff and I like the idea of streaming games to my phone, but like I hate the idea of using touch.
some of the
But
things you tell me, I just have. You're like, oh, it's this, this, and this. I'm like, I don't care. Well,
exactly.
It's like
You don't care about game streaming, do you?
why would I care about game streaming when I have a console?
Exactly. But like I have to go away from my console sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe I'm not saying I wouldn't try it out at some point. I'm just saying like as like a primary way of playing it, no.
Oh, it's
But
never going to be a primary way.
no, and then we need to see how Microsoft's whole plan is around that and what exactly, their whole situation. Like we have to wait and see how that all plays out. So, I don't know. Ernie wants to know, this will be, I think, the last question before we get out of here. He says, thoughts of a built-in camera for the PlayStation 5, spy concerns like Kinect. Yeah, there was a whole
Built-in
PlayStation.
camera? Is that a rumor?
Yeah, so the guy who, okay, so here's the thing. I'll run this through. I did a video about this. It's a couple days ago if you guys want to get my full thoughts on it. But PlayStation 5 rumors came from the guy who, the day before Sony dropped out of E3, said they were dropping out of E3. Nobody believed them. And then, of course, 24 hours later, the guy looks like an insider. Like, he must know something, right? Because clearly he was saying Sony was not going to be at E3 when everybody thought they were. So people were like, after it was proven fact, people went back to him and he's like, I have more leaks. And he was talking about the PlayStation 5 is going to be $500. It's a 4K 60 beast with like an 8-core GPU Ryzen or some shit. I don't really know about the specs. That it's releasing either in March of 2020 or November of 2020, which, shocker, wow, what a guess, right? I mean, I could guess that. It's going to be revealed, and they have 2 events in 2019, one during the halfway point, and then one at PSX 19 where the PlayStation 5 will be fully revealed. There's a PSVR 2 being made as well, which gets rid of the breaker box, but like also the camera is going to be built into the controller, I think it was. So there'd be a camera in your controller.
That is weird.
And he also says,
camera on the headset.
I don't know, like if I'm remembering correctly, somebody in chat will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but then he also said Anthem's a complete mess, doesn't really work on the base consoles, and that it's going to get delayed. Which I talked to some people that are in the know about Anthem, and they told me that whole thing is complete bull. That the game's completely fine and it's launching in February. But yeah, so this guy came out and said all that stuff, and a lot of people believe him because he was right about Sony not leaving E3.
I think if Anthem was going to get delayed, they would have announced it by now. Because they're doing weekly streams for Anthem.
Yeah. No, I mean, the devs have already come out and said it's not going to be delayed. And that's what I'm saying. I talk to people that I know that are close to them, and they tell me it's not going to be delayed. So it's like, do you believe this guy who was right about Sony not being at E3, but then is now also going to be wrong about Anthem getting delayed? Now, of course, if Anthem ends up getting delayed and the devs are just blowing smoke up everyone's asses, then everyone's going to come back and look at this dude like he was the prophet, right?
Prophet.
So I don't know. Like, I know PlayStation, I think they're going to continue with the PSVR 2. And yeah, so like Sammy Prescott Jr. says the camera's in the console and there's like a screen in the controller or something. So I'm not really sure, but yeah, I do recall people being upset.
That's gonna push costs up.
Well, I mean, he says the console's $500. So
oh my god, can you imagine if Sony releases this sort of Kinect-like bundle, forced bundle, and then Microsoft just does the normal thing?
That's the thing. Is like the Kinect got concerns that it was spying on you, right? However,
I think people are over that by now.
However, I think people are completely over that by now because they have Amazon, they have the Alexa, they have all the other devices that literally listen in.
I have 2 different digital speakers in my bedroom. I got a
but do those come with cameras as well? I think people are.
I've got a Windows Hello camera built into my laptop, so every time I don't sign into my laptop with a passport, it scans my face and logs me in. So God knows what my laptop's seeing. There's probably all sorts of dodgy pictures of me on Microsoft servers.
Yeah, so I mean,
put that image in your head.
Those are the rumors regarding PlayStation 5. I have a video up if you guys want to check it out that goes a little more in-depth detail. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, a camera in the controller and the console, like everything built in, it's like, I don't know. But anyways, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for tuning into the podcast. We had like 350 people. If you enjoyed it or disliked the podcast, leave it a like or a dislike. Subscribe to my channel if you are new here. If you like, the content I provide, I would appreciate it. The notification bell, you can hit that as well to always be notified when I drop new videos, as they are always coming. And make sure you follow Jez. His link's in the Twitter. His link is in the description of the video to his Twitter.
Links in the Twitter.
Yeah, I know. I always say it wrong. And I'm sure you have some articles you're prepping pretty soon, right? On Windows Central.
Always working on stuff.
Didn't you release one about the Xbox One? Is it worth getting now? Like a year later, I think you released one like that, right?
I know it was Xbox One X versus Xbox One S. The winner.
There you go.
That was an update of an old article. That article is getting insane traffic because of Black Friday.
Right.
A lot of people are buying them.
Right. So yeah, check out Jez's articles on Windows Central. Check out some of the other videos on my channel. Subscribe, click the notification bell. I have a bunch of stuff planned for next week as well as this weekend. There's always stuff cooking. So thank you guys for watching live here on YouTube, and thanks everybody who's watching it later on iTunes and Google Play and SoundCloud. We appreciate it. Hope everybody has a good rest of the weekend, and we'll see you on Wednesday, hopefully next week, for another episode of the Xbox 2 podcast.
Ugh.
Later, guys.